and it's great to be here. I'd like to turn the service a little bit around and begin the time at the sharing here together with a meditation. So I'd like to invite you, as you're comfortable, to turn your attention within, and we'll begin with that and move into the rest of the service. Thank you. Let's become aware of our breathing. With every exhalation, letting go into this present moment. Letting go of any thoughts of the past or of the future. Letting go of whatever it took to get here this morning. Allowing ourselves to enter more deeply into this present moment. Knowing that this present moment is the only holy moment. Right now. And we give thanks for this precious opportunity that we have to be together here this morning in this sanctuary. We know that this is a sanctuary. It is made sacred by our yearnings to awaken to the truth that we are. And it is a sanctuary that reflects the inner sanctuary that is our dwelling place, our true home, where we dwell always in unity, the infinite love that is the source of our life and the source of all life. We give thanks for this community. And we give thanks for all of our loved ones. We give thanks for all of our teachers, whoever they may be. We give thanks for all of the teachings of all the world's religions, and turn our minds away from the delusion of separateness and toward the truth of the interconnectedness of all life. And we give thanks for this beautiful earth and our time here, and for the forests and rivers, the mountains and streams, the lakes and islands, the prairies, the birds celebrating their lives, all the animals celebrating their lives on the land and in the water, and the whole human family awakening to the truth that we are. And we give thanks knowing that the light that makes this all possible, the light that shines at the very heart of the universe, that this light is shining right now in our heart, radiating into every cell of our being, bringing every aspect of our life, every function into harmony, into alignment with the truth that we are. Aligning our entire being with our purpose. And we know that we have a purpose for this lifetime. A reason that we are here. And we open now to the truth that we are. To directly experience the truth that we are. Abiding in our true home, abiding in the silence, beyond thinking, abiding in being, awareness, unity. Abiding in our true home, abiding in love, abiding in compassion, abiding in joy, abiding in peace, abiding in freedom, abiding in abundance, abiding in gratitude and appreciation. May all beings be happy and at peace and free, and may we realize the original brightness of our own minds and hearts. May we continue together to build a more enlightened society, a world that cares for everyone, that reflects the truth that we are, the inner Christ, truth and love. Through the power and presence of the indwelling Spirit, we give thanks knowing this is so. And so it is. Thank you all for joining together in the meditation. And I'd like to play a short piece of original piano music. And this will be a piece, as Reverend Darlene was saying, connecting with our intuition. And so what I plan on doing is just playing this piece. The original melody came to me when I was in Russia. I was there back in it was right before I met Madeline in 1990, and I was there on like a peace mission, citizen diplomacy, and playing concerts over there. And this melody came, and it really seemed like it was almost divinely inspired. So I'd like to invite you, as you're listening to the music, to just listen with your intuition and see what emerges as you do that. I think languages of intuition, really the two main ones are music and art. And so if we listen deeply, we can very often get glimmers of an understanding or a feeling or a knowing that goes beyond the typical knowing. So I'd like to dedicate this music to the healing of all of our relations, to creating a field of joy and freedom and peace for us, not only us here, but for all human beings and all beings. And invite you, as you're listening, to listen with your intuition and perhaps let the music take you on an inner journey. The piece is, we call it The Garden. Enjoy. you all for joining us this morning, and a big thank you to Reverend Darlene, and it's great to be back in your presence again after quite a few years. You know, Madeline and I have been traveling to Unity churches now for about 20 years, a little over 20 years full time. And it's, I think, always helpful to remember as we're gathered here together this morning that we're part of a larger movement where people are gathering all over North America and in other countries as well. And my feeling, having been immersed in Unity for all these years and being part of services for hundreds and hundreds of churches, that this really is one of the healthiest movements on the planet, at least in our culture, because I think, in a sense, what it's about is radical inclusion, to focus on healing this mentality of exclusion that we're injected within our society so strongly. I remember when I was a kid growing up, I was taught every Sunday that we believed a certain thing and we were special, and we get to go to, if you just went along with the program, you get to go to a special heaven, it was kind of just for us. And this feeling of having the one right path. And what Unity, I think, the reason it's so healthy is that it's really an attempt, I think, to distill the essence of the message in a way that's not a dead word, but a living word, a word that lives within us in our consciousness and can live within the community, and sees the universality of the teaching, that this teaching that we see is so beautiful in what Jesus was talking about and in the Christian scriptures, but also that the same wisdom and compassion and awareness comes through many other traditions as well. And that this is part of our human heritage. We don't have to reject this or judge others, but we can actually enrich ourselves. And so I think what I'd like to talk about this morning is what we'll be doing, a little workshop this afternoon, the idea of intuition and what is intuition. And in many ways I think it's intimately connected with both creativity and spirituality. I refer to these three, actually it's the three sisters, and all three of them I think lead into healing, lead us into healing in some way. Deep healing, not only physical, but I think on a cultural level and perhaps on a psychological and emotional level as well. And when we look at the teachings of Jesus, for example, I think we see a very strong calling to this. There's this fundamental teaching, and actually this goes back even farther, but the idea of the two main teachings, to love God and love your neighbor. This basic idea I think is so profound, because what love God means, I think essentially, is to cultivate an authentic connection ourselves with the transpersonal dimension. This is something that all of us do. We can cultivate this in our own lives and in our own minds, and I think through prayer and meditation, through creativity and through service and so forth, we can find, each one of us, ways where we deepen our connection with what goes beyond the personal. And persona in Greek means mask. The mask that we wear, the inner dialogue that's continually churning, that's reinforcing this basic sense that what I am is a fundamentally separate self, that I have to struggle and manipulate the situations to get what I want and so forth. We're taught this at a very deep level in our entire society. And so what Jesus was pointing out, I think, is the same thing that Buddha and many other great teachers were pointing at and actually experiencing themselves, which is that if we can question all of the official stories in our society and question the inner programming that is driving us, we can learn, instead of being guided by that inner programming and the thoughts that generate. This is the stuff we've all been bombarded with from the time we're little infants. What our parents told us, what our teachers told us, what our ministers told us. I mean, not Reverend Darlene, but other ministers, what they told us, and what the Walmart ads are saying. We're just deluged with all this stuff, and most of it is utter lies and nonsense, really, from the point of view of the truth that we are. A lot of it is, and so. With cultivating this, to love God and cultivate this connection with the transpersonal dimension, what goes beyond the programming, means essentially to connect with our intuition, this direct knowing that we all have available to us. And I think the greatest gift that our intuition gives us is the gift of living our life, our unique life. It doesn't mean that suddenly everything is easy and you never, no one ever breaks your window or whatever it is. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean we won't have challenges. What it does mean is that we are living our life. And when we're living our life and connecting with the uniqueness that we are and allowing that to come forth, there's a fundamental sense, I believe, of joy, that this is our true nature. When we delve down, peel away all the layers of worry and regret and shame and so forth, to the truth that we are at our very core of our being, and quiet our minds so that we can actually experience that, which is difficult in our society given the programming we have. When we do that, we will find, I think, a bubbling spring of joy that is our true nature. Then out of that, essentially, comes the second great teaching, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. And this basic idea of treating others with kindness and compassion and mercy, and I mean all others, not just those who, if you're not nice to them, will sue you or hit you back or whatever, but how to treat those who are really vulnerable in our hands and who don't retaliate. That's really, I think, the test of our spirituality and our maturity. How do we treat animals? How do we treat the planet? How do we treat future generations who will be inheriting the earth from us? How do we treat those who don't have a lot of power? And so I think cultivating compassion and a deeper understanding, really, for the nature of our society is a way of spiritual liberation that helps us to create communities of compassion and kindness and to live a life of meaning. One of the things I'm feeling is how quickly our lives go by. And so in the time that we have here to understand that we have a precious opportunity in having a human birth. In the Buddhist tradition, they talk about how difficult it is to attain a human birth. And if you do attain one, don't fritter it away. Don't waste it chasing things that are shallow and meaningless. To use it for spiritual cultivation, to get clarity about the truth that we are, to cultivate our intuition, to cultivate our connection with the infinite joy that we are, and to treat others with kindness and compassion. Because the key is, one of the things I think that's missing, in a sense, in a lot of the contemporary sort of New Age teachings is, what I learned very strongly as a Zen monk, for example, is that our behavior matters, and that acting non-violently and cultivating that as best we can to act with love and kindness really opens the doorway for us to go deeper in our meditation. That very often we hit a plateau if we're just going along and living the way our society tells us, because our society in general is not renowned throughout the universe as being very kind and loving. And so to actually realize we're products in many ways of this society, and to, as Jesus said, don't just be as everyone else is, to go set a higher standard for our behavior, where we're being, as much as we can, impeccable in our kindness and consideration and mercy for others, especially those who perhaps the society doesn't honor and recognize. And I think as we do that, we'll connect more with an inner peace that will allow us to connect more with our intuition. And I'd like to talk just a little bit about, because I think this is kind of a little bit abstract. So in a sense, in my own life, I remember growing up in Concord, Massachusetts, which was an interesting place to grow up just because it was the home of two revolutions. We had in 1775, on April 19th, that was called Patriots Day, and my father would get dressed up in his Minuteman outfit and get the gun off the wall, and we'd go down to the Old North Bridge in Concord, and these other guys were dressed up in red coats, and we would shoot at them and reenact the whole battle and chase them back to Boston and celebrate revolution. The idea was, if you have a situation that's really bad, change it. I think it's a good idea. But the other revolution that people talk about sometimes was the Transcendentalist Revolution that happened about 100 years later in the 1800s, the mid-1800s. And so I was born in Emerson Hospital and learned to swim in Walden Pond and went to Thoreau School and Olcott School. There was this whole feeling of the Transcendentalists. And I think that the reason that, one of the reasons I think I'm so drawn to unity, actually, is that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, in their wisdom, really saw the power of these teachers. And these were the very first ones to bring the ancient wisdom teachings from Asia, a lot of the non-Western teachings, into our society. And these wonderful teachings, for example, from the Taoist tradition, the idea of God as a principle you can understand and live in accordance with. Or from the Buddhist tradition, the idea of God as mind. Or in general, the idea from all these traditions, that God is just as female as she is male. You know, this idea, this really questioning this indoctrinated idea that God is somehow male, which is so unbelievably ridiculous. So, we really, questioning these things, this allows us this is part of our human heritage, to deepen our connection with spirituality. So I don't remember specifics, but I do remember when I went away to Colby College in Maine, I started to go through, I think, what Joseph Campbell later talked about as midlife crisis. Hit me kind of early. But I remember he said, it's when you're climbing a ladder, and you're climbing up the ladder, and you're really getting up pretty high, and you're starting to feel really good about yourself, how high you've climbed on this ladder, and then you realize that the ladder is against the wrong wall. There's nothing up here I want to do or get to. I mean, it's like an exercise in futility. So I remember you have to come back down. But anyway, so I started to really question the whole everything, and I started really reading a lot of books on Eastern religion and what Jesus was saying. I thought, it's really very radical and really fantastic what he was saying. And I read one book that kind of seemed to sum the whole thing up in a really powerful way. It was a book written about 100 years, late 1800s, by a Canadian named Richard Buck. He wrote a book called Cosmic Consciousness, and basically, some of you may have heard of it, but what he basically said, the thesis of his book was that most people attain what he called self-consciousness. That's basically where most of us are at. We care about ourself, and we're sort of competing with each other to get what we can. And in the Buddhist tradition, that is referred to as samsara. Samsara means suffering that never ends. And so we all know this is really not where it's at, but that's where most of us are. But he said certain people had attained what he referred to as cosmic consciousness. It's a qualitative leap, basically, beyond self-consciousness, whereas in both men and women, many traditions, really the great sages and saints and mystics, the founders of religions, the great poets and writers, many of them were so revered and so powerful because they were no longer bound by this self-consciousness. They had lost the fear of death. They had this intellectual illumination and moral elevation that put them at a point where they cared about everyone. They no longer saw themselves at odds with others. They lived to bless the world, and they lived to find the unique gift that they had and give that to the world. And I think the thing that I loved about this book was he said that this is the destiny of all human beings, that all of us are on the path of attaining cosmic consciousness. That is our job here. And I remember reading this and thinking, all right, that's it. That is it. I'm not going to care about all this anymore. I remember going home back to my father and telling him, Dad, about cosmic consciousness. That's why we're here. Isn't it great? He would say, well, we're paying a lot of money for this education. I want you to get a good job and take over the business. But I talked to my younger brother, Ed, and I said, about cosmic consciousness. And to my delight, he went, yes, let's do it. Let's attain cosmic consciousness. All right. So we told so we put our heads together. Of course, the issue, the main problem is, well, what do you do? Now what? Okay. So, but we thought about it pretty hard, and we came up with a solution. We knew that we would definitely be able to attain cosmic consciousness if we did one thing, and that was go to California. So we threw this together ourselves. This was 1975. San Francisco was kind of beckoning with that. So I remember telling my father, and bless his heart, he actually quoted from Thoreau. He said, because I was actually groomed to take over the family newspaper business. He had 13 newspapers, a whole empire, And but he said, every man must march to the beat of the drum that he hears. If that's what you hear, then... So we walked down the driveway with our packs with some fresh baked cookies from my mother and a few little things, and we headed west, and after about a month we got as far as Buffalo. We went to Buffalo, and it was getting really freezing. It was like October, and I thought, oh man, and we really realized that it wasn't so much an outer journey, it was really an inner journey. We were meditating. We had found this book about Ramana Maharshi from India, a great sage, who said, what you should do is find out who you are, and that was the meditation we were doing. So I thought, well, I've got a bachelor's degree from a good school. We were in Buffalo. It's October. I think we better head south. Figured that much. So we headed south, and we walked about 15 or 20 miles a day down through upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and across Pennsylvania to West Virginia. And then they said, now boys, you've hit the Bible Belt. And I did not really know what that meant, being from Concord, Mass. But I found out very quickly that means they try to save you every night. You know? So, quite an experience, because we had no money, not 1 cent. And so we were just basically at the mercy of whatever happened. And but the thing I have to say is that we did great. I mean, we never really had any problems, and in fact, we never went hungry. Little miracles would just unfold every day. We just kept walking and meditating. And I remember sometimes, a few times the food would just show up out of nowhere. Literally, a sandwich by the side of the road would just be sitting there, and you go, oh, there it is. We weren't even surprised. And we have sometimes these people were really strong faith, and they would ask us to come and talk to their Sunday school or something. And we just tell the kids, it's right what Jesus said. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be taken care of. Just do that. That's what you have to focus on. Focus on seeking the kingdom of heaven within. And then they give us a little donation, like maybe $30. And back then, that was quite a lot, and we'd walk down and we'd go to a little, I remember going to this little restaurant, and lunch for 2 people back then was maybe $12. And then, so we give her, we give her $30 and she would be happy, give her a big tip, and we'd walk on with nothing. And we found out that was the way to do it, just to let every day take care of itself. And we worked our way farther south, and we got eventually to a place called The Farm, which at that point was in Tennessee, and it was the largest hippie commune in the world, about 1,000 people, and they were all from California. So I was in the middle, And that was really a great place, and I really felt like I learned a lot there. I was only there for about a month, and became a vegetarian. Actually, never ate meat again in my life. I saw these 1,000 people that didn't eat any meat, and they weren't dying of a protein deficiency. They were doing great. So I ended up at a Zen monastery in Alabama. You probably think I'm lying now, but there was actually a Zen monastery in Alabama. And then from there, I did get out to San Francisco, and a few years later, I shaved my head, became a Zen monk, and lived as a Zen monk in Korea. And and then came back, got my PhD at Berkeley, taught college for a number of years, and then at Tuttle in Switzerland. And now we actually been going to Unity churches for 20 years, and we just had our 20th wedding anniversary, and I just turned 60 about a year ago. So about a week ago. So life, life goes quickly. But the thing I want to close with here is this basic idea that I mentioned earlier about joy, because I remember as I was walking on this walk with my brother, and we didn't have any reason in the outer world to have any joy, right? I mean, we didn't have any security, we didn't have any money, we didn't know where we were going to spend the night. We were walking in who knows where, what might happen around the next bend. There might be a bad dog or who knows what, But I remember walking along, and for the first time, I think, in my life, since I was perhaps a little infant, I would feel these waves of joy just washing over me. I felt so happy, and healings were happening. My vision, that's a great thing. It's, I couldn't see. I had thick glasses and contact lenses, and I actually, for years, I've passed my driver's test with no glasses. And, anything can be healed, for sure. But anyway, so I remember feeling this joy, and I think it was because I was living my life. And I think this is the fundamental thing, that all of us, if we connect with our intuition, and there's ways to do that, we'll be talking about that this afternoon, but as we connect with our intuition and live our life, we'll find this inner sense of joy, and that is what I think is the thing that is the best way to help others, is to work on ourselves. And I think when we do that, each one of us as individuals, connect with our intuition and connect with the unique blessing that we're here to give, then we create a field around us that naturally, sort of subconsciously encourages other people to do the same thing. They will just feel that. And then I think when we do that as a community, in other words, when each one of us are working within ourselves to authentically live a spiritual life and to question the official stories of our culture and to live a life of peace and kindness and of unity, then as a community we can magnify that blessing enormously. We can create the possibilities for so many more people to be touched. And I really also think there's nothing more important we can do as human beings on this planet at this time than to be doing this, to actually make an effort to develop our intuition and our spiritual connection with the infinite, and to live these teachings, because these teachings from Jesus and all these great teachings are so precious, and they will die out if we don't keep them alive and live them. And when we do that, we are passing on to future generations, I think, the most precious gift that we can possibly do. So thank you all. I know if you came into this hall somehow, you found your way here, you're already on the path of doing this and making these connections, and so I really appreciate the efforts you're making. Much love to all of you. Keep up the great work you're doing, and keep connecting with the inner joy that you are. Thank you very much.
Would you rub your hands together and let us reflect back to you, Will, a truth that we know about you. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing, and we look forward to